Okay, today talking about Amirah L'akum. The general rule is, I was going to put this on the screen, but it wasn't worth it. The general rule is that Goyim can't do Melacha for Yidden on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Okay, that's the general rule. And based on that sentence that I just said to you, I'm going to break up what I'm going to talk about into three parts. Melacha for Yidden on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Okay, those are going to be three parts I'm going to break it up into. I counted up that I have 26 applications that it's going to come to. Almost all of them are food service related. So if that interests you or doesn't interest you, almost everyone's going to be food service related. Okay, so our first group, the biggest group, is Melacha. So the first thing is, what does that mean that he can't do Melacha for me? So the most obvious thing is that he can't do it as a reishah. He can't put food in the oven for me. He can't turn on an oven for me. He can't fill up a hot water urn. Okay, those like Melachas reishah. If he does that, he's not allowed to do that for me. I can't tell him to do that. Also, I can't ask him to do an Isid Rabbanan either. In Isid Rabbanan, there's a well-known kula that would, since Amirah L'akum is an Isid Rabbanan, and him doing the Melacha is on Isid Rabbanan. So if it's a Shabbos, if there's a big tzorech or there's a hefsem meruba, to help someone who's sick, or help people do a mitzvah, then you're allowed to tell the guy to do those things also. The Mishmur also adds in, the also now allowed to tell him to do things that are of the d'chol. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but you're not allowed to do things that are of the d'chol either, even less, which is even less than like a drabanan kind of. Okay, so an example of where we would allow shvus to shvus b'makom for a tzarech gadol is what happens if a hotel realizes on the first day of Yom Tov that their meal for that night is in the freezer. Okay, so it means if they don't let the guy take the food out of the freezer and has a hachana for tomorrow, if they don't do hachana now for tomorrow, there's going to be hundreds of people who are going to be very hungry. Okay, now it's hard to imagine anybody being hungry in a Pesach hotel. Usually, they don't think of those things going together. But if their meal isn't, they realize they made a mistake. So we say it's a shus to do a hachana. It's a shus.
Definitely be grumpy.
What do you say?
Definitely be grumpy.
Hungry.
Yeah, but we allow it as a mitzvah.
He's talking to that. No, if it's necessary, because you're just taking that. It's like bringing the guy in from.
So a different time. I was going to mention this later. A different time. Totally, we're going to talk about doing hachana from one day to the next day. For Yidden, for Goyim, all kinds of things. I'm just mentioning as an example because in that over there it came up. It was like there was a shus. It was more obvious that you're allowed to do that. Whether there are other tzadim to be made, it's a whole different shmooze. For one day we'll talk about maybe before Shavuos because it's not going to happen before Pesach, but maybe before Shavuos. The whole idea how you do hachana from Shabbos for Yom Tov to Shabbos and like that's a whole different shmooze. Okay, so this idea that we could do a shus b'makom mitzvah is a kula. It's something you do when you get stuck. It's not a thing that you do l'chatchila. So we talked about this a different time. It's the one of the reasons why we don't allow goyim to do chazara for us. Okay, chazara is only drabanan, and so you say b'makom mitzvah. We need to have warm food for the Shabbos meal. so do chazara shus, and we spoke then. There is a tzad. There's even those who think you could do l'chatchila. But the reason why we don't rely on that is because it's takas shus, but it's not meant l'chatchila. You don't set up yourself like that. If you get stuck, I told you the case. The stuff food's all the freezer by mistake. Okay, so then you could do that. You don't plan to do like that. Okay, and it comes. There's a Magen Avram who gives a overall says be cautious about being samech on shvus to shvus. He says it's not meant to be a broad head to do whatever you want to, and also when you get to bigger things like a hotel, you have to worry about people all of a sudden making up great tzrachim. There's a tzarech gadol to this thing and to that thing, and all of a sudden the guy is doing everything. Okay. Now the next thing. So we went from a deraisa to drabanans, and maybe even less than that. Okay. So now what happens if there's a machlokes whether something is mutar aser? Okay. So the Mechaber says that if we have a machlokes about whether something is mutar aser, and we're machmir about that thing, the case he's talking about is yesh shvir b'kelim, and we're machmir about that thing. Even so, the Mechaber says you could ask a guy to do it because it's a shayla. We're being machmir on machlokes. The guy could be samech on the mekilim. Okay, so you can tell the guy you could do. That's the Mechaber says. It's in the same sense. The Mechaber says he says we pass in yesh shvir b'kelim. He says
you mean yesh shvir b'kelim?
No, what steer is an opinion. In a kli, it's shvira. It's similar. So he says. So he said maybe I'm saying the words wrong. I don't think so. But he says but since are those who make it, therefore you can tell a guy to do it. That's like the end of this if. The Magen Avraham doesn't agree with that. The Magen Avraham brings others who don't think like that. And Shulchan Aruch Rav says that you should do is you should only be samechan if there's a tzorech Shabbos. You shouldn't just do it randomly. You shouldn't randomly allow. And for that reason. The CRC has two things that we say you should do it if you're stuck, which is to say is we tell the people, the caterers, have to open bottles before Shabbos. They shouldn't be opening bottles on Shabbos because there's a question whether you can or you can't do it. And we choose to say we should not allow that. You should not be doing that. But if something went wrong, then the goyim could do it for you.
Isn't it psik reishah,
We'll get into psik reishah in a second. Okay, but I don't know if that. I was going to talk about it in a second, but I don't know if it's a psik reishah. You're making the click. That's what you're doing. That's the whole point. That's
the point to open the bottle, not to make
the point is to open the bottle. Okay, it's interesting. Maybe. Okay, I think about that. I haven't thought of it I didn't think of it from that angle. Maybe.
That's what he's...
No, we'll get into psik reishah in a second, but I didn't think of it from that angle. But my understanding of why we allow it is because it's a shaila whether you're allowed to do it or not. It's a machlokes. We choose to be machmer on that machlokes, but we're saying for the tzarech, so therefore lechatchila we wouldn't tell the going to do it. We don't plan to do it like that. But if there's a tzarech, we forgot to do it, something went wrong, then we're allowed to do it. And another example of that is dicing vegetables. If you're dicing vegetables very close to a meal, when you make them, very finely, do tchina, it's close to a meal, it's a machlokes whether you're allowed to do that or not. Whether there's a heter of right by eating if you're allowed to do it or not. We don't do that. But the goyim could do that close to the meal. They could be samach on that meal. Okay, on those mekilim who hold that you're allowed to do it. Okay, now what you mentioned before is there this? So now we got even less than the rabbanans, and now it's a machlokes case. And now what happens if it's just something that's just a tircha? Is that a heter? Is there an issur to tell a guy to do something that's just a tircha? Like this case of taking the food out of the fridge for tomorrow, doing a chana for tomorrow. I told you that's going to be a different shmuz. Okay, a whole its own special shmuz. Okay, now to psik reishah. If you do Melacha, which is ein miskaven, and if you do one thing and it's ein miskaven for something to happen as a result from that, then it's mutter even for you to do that. Okay. Now the exception is when it's a psik reishah. If you know that when you do this thing, the other thing is going to happen, and so we as if assume that you had that in mind because it's automatic that happens. It goes together, so you don't call it ein miskaven. So for that's also for a yid. Yid's not allowed to do something that's in miskaven, but if it's a psik reishah, the guy's allowed to do that. Okay, so an example of that is if you have a hot box, you warm up food for Shabbos for any time, and many of the hot boxes have a digital display that tells you what the temperature is. Okay, so when you open the door of that hot box, there's no question that the digital display is going to change because there's no way the temperature can change a degree or two, or something is going to have to change. So when you open the door, the numbers are going to change. So Yid can't open it because if he opens up the door, he's psik reishah that he's going to change the display to say from saying this temperature to saying that temperature. He says, but the guy can open it up because it's only psik reishah. He's in miskaven he couldn't care less whether it says it. They're not paying any attention to that, and therefore he's allowed to do that. Now, in theory, the same thing would also allow goyim to open up the sugar packets that have a lot of words on them, or if they write words on a birthday cake. So both of those are psik reishah. Literally, the Mishnah calls them psik reishah. That you're going to rip the letters. Okay, when you rip the sugar packet, you're trying to get the sugar out. Okay, or you're cutting the cake. You're memela going to cut the what says "Happy Birthday Yankee" on top of it. You're going to cut that when you do that. That's a psik reishah. But Rabelski and Rosh both said the same thing. That we shouldn't let them to do that because this both goes back to the Magen Avraham that any time. The more you allow goyim to do things that Yidden can't do, is the more you get closer to becoming just rampant, do whatever you want to. Okay, so when we can avoid it, we say to them, find a different way to get your sugar. You can get sugar instead of little packets, get containers of sugar, okay? Or write for the birthday cake, write happy birthday on a piece of chocolate or onto a plastic on top of it, so you don't have to cut the letters. So you could think ahead and avoid having this kind of a problem.
But even in that case, you also have it's sudden lahater. even in that case, in Samrechi, the letters are still not being whatever. Besides from psik.
That's true. So now you're back to the other one. Now you get me from the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, backwards. But the feeling was the same. No, again, if they got stuck, we tell them to do that. It's a Magen Avraham, really, but it's right, which is the.
Magen Avraham is not talking about a case where you have psik reishah, and
No, he wasn't. No, he's saying is, but the more you tell Goyim, the guy you could do this, but the Yid can't do that, is the more we slide into a point where we're letting the Goyim do everything. Okay, and we lose sight of Amirah L'akum. Okay, now a more questionable case of this same question of psik reishah is a self-refilling hot water urn. Okay, meaning in a bigger commercial establishment, instead of in my house, we have a hot water urn, a little thing that has hot water in it. I don't know, 20 cups of water, how much it could hold. When you need to fill it up, you fill it up by hand. Okay. But commercial guys, every time you take a cup out, more water falls back in, like in your hot water in your hot water heater in your house. Okay, it automatically refills. Okay, because you want to always have a lot of water, because it always refills it. So some people said it's okay for the guardian to take water out of those urns because it's a psik reishah. I'm trying to get hot water out. But the fact that it refills, it's a psik reishah. So let the guardian take water out of it. Meaning this way you have hot water the whole Shabbos.
And it's a groma.
What?
And it's a groma.
Because why is it a groma?
It's not directly with it. I'm saying it depends sometimes. It's a sub reishah. I don't know.
No, it's not a suffix. No.
Automatic every time.
Like when you take your hot water out of your hot water heater in your house.
Someone gets to a certain point.
No, it continues.
Well, they can. Once hot water in your house needs the new water to push it out.
That's correct.
But the hot water urns, some of them have a float, a literal float. Some have a
and the float, the float takes time till it gets to the spot. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, maybe such a thing like that. Okay, but so there were those who allowed, but Rebelsky didn't go for it. He said he completely disagreed. He said because psik reishah, I didn't think about the grama. I don't know if there's grama parts of it. He wasn't a big fan of gramas, but the psik reishah part, he said it's not a psik reishah. He says because psik reishah is step 2 after you're einem miskaven. So you have to be einem miskaven, and then you could say whether is it a psik reishah or not. He said you're not einem miskaven because when you take the water out, you want the water to refill. Okay, that's a judgment that. No. He's saying that it's not einem miskaven. You have to first be einem miskaven to get. So he says because you know that I need water today. I'm going to need water in 5 minutes from now. I want it to refill up. That's debatable. He wants to say it's not einem miskaven. I want the water to come in because I know I'm going to need it in a minute from that.
It really depends on the guy. Like he's like thinking, okay, we need to have enough water, so I'm doing this with that, so there should be enough water. Whatever. We made that guy. He's like, I need water from here. Please get out of here.
Right. I hear the point. I'm just saying he looked at it that way. Your way was what we don't let Goyim take hot water out of things, but we do let them take ice out of the ice machine. Okay, because there we consider einem miskaven. No one's thinking that if I take this ice out, more the thing is going to refill and make me ice, and an hour from now there's going to be more ice. So that they let them take scoop ice out of the ice machine because. Either because what I'm saying, because it's real psik reishah, because it's einem miskaven, or because it might not fill up every time. More like he said, which is like it's a float. You know what I mean? The ice machine doesn't fill up every time you take out a scoop of ice. The ice machine we let them do, but the hot water we don't let them do. Okay, the self-refilling hot water thing we don't let them do. Okay, I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes to another example of this kind of a question of whether is maybe einem miskaven. Is there einem miskaven in the first place?
Well, the shita say with the filters now. The water filters in New York City, he held very stark that it's considered the miskaven, not a psik reishah.
Okay, so that was its own special, really unusual situation. Okay,
similar like London's.
Yeah, well, it was unusual because the Pharisees didn't that you're allowed to do it. So it was a funny thing. Okay, fine. So now we finished the first group, which was which things are called Melacha. Okay, and the second thing is they're not. I told you there's a rule. You can't do Melacha for Yidden on Shabbos Yom Tov. Now group 2 is for Yidden. Okay, so a big exception to the Isra of Amirah L'akum is they're only not allowed to do Melacha for you, for Yid. What happens if they do the Melacha for themselves? He does the Melacha not because the fact that he's doing what you asked him to do in a Melacha form is for his choice rather than for your choice. So you said to do X, he decided to do it through Melacha. So he's doing the Melacha part of it as a adatah. He's doing what you asked him, but he's doing it through Melacha because of his own choice. That's mutter. That's not doing it for a Yid, and therefore it's mutter. Okay. So for example, I could cut meat, and I could wash dishes on Shabbos. I could do all those things, but we let the goyim, and I say to the goy, please, I need you to cut the salami for the Suda, or I need you to wash the dishes when we're finished. We let them do that because we say, basically, they can choose to do it with a knife or with a the same way I wash dishes. The fact that they use the electric slicer or they use the hot water, that's their choice. Okay. Now, this is also a little fuzzy, a little questionable, because people say, come on, you can't cut meat the same way that the electric slicer can do it. You know what I mean? If he cut the cold cuts the way you do it with a knife, it wouldn't look so presentable. So did I tell him that he has to cut it like on the machine, or was it just you cut however you want to, and he chooses to use the machine? Okay. So Rabbi Schwartz said, nah, a real chef could cut it just as good, as you could with the slicer, and it's not the same thing. Okay, and then washing dishes was a little bit of a variation, and that was because a different question, and that's because Board of Health won't let you wash dishes in a commercial operation in cold water. I could wash dishes in my kitchen sink in cold water, but in a operation serving the public, I can't wash sink.
Really? It's the rule?
Of course, you can't wash dishes with cold water.
Well, the average kitchen is not using the 3 compartments properly either. They're just washing dishes.
Okay.
So it's also, it's not like they're washing with hot water and the Board of Health. They're not following any of the regulations anyways.
Okay, so you're saying, so they're not doing because of the Board of Health. They could kill it.
Hot water is obsecration.
The hot water, so this is back to what we said before, that it's, if the hot water is not a psik it's back to that question of whether the hot water is a psik or not. Yes, okay, fair. Mm-hmm. We're assuming that the hot water is not a psik. You're not getting off the hook of that. So the question here is, what about the Board of Health? Okay, so when they do it because of the Board of Health, how should we look at that? Okay, I mean, when I said to him, wash the dishes. Okay, if I have to follow the rules of the Board of Health, I know. I have to follow the rules of the Board of Health. So I'm telling him he's got to wash it with hot water because of that. Or should you say?
You didn't say wash with that water. You just said wash.
But I know, but
you can't say wash with that water.
No, but I know, but because it's not. He's not doing it for his purpose. He's doing it for me. Right. Okay, he's doing it because in order to keep me in business, I have to wash hot water. And other people said, no, the board of health. He's doing it for them. Okay, they're also goyim. Okay, he's doing it not for him, not for me, he's doing it for them. He got to keep the inspector happy, so he's doing it for them. Okay, this is vague. Rabbi Shechter didn't buy any of that. Rabbi Shechter said, no, the only reason why it's mutter, and you're not going to be happy to hear this, is because the Mishnah Berurah says that if there's a mitzvah derabim, then you could be samech on the sheet that you can even do it to reishah. He says, and so what? That Yidden should be able to go to hotels. There should be such a musag that we should have such a possibility. But he wasn't overall happy about the idea. Now, this is like I'm not so happy. I'll tell you why it could be mutter. But he said no. Okay, so that's washing dishes. Okay.
He said he's matter because the mitzvah derabim.
He said the best explanation could be is that you're allowed to. The Chayodim says that since there's a shita that you could even go do an isser.
I'm worried. That plastic plates.
No, I understand it. No. My kashi is that he would put this in this category.
Right. That's.
So what's also then? By running these hotels.
Oh, you mean I can do anything I want to?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, it's a fair question. Okay.
Get yourself a job like that.
Well, I guess here because we're stuck. Because here there wasn't a choice. What's our other choice here? Plastic plates. Okay, so I'm not sure which is worse to give them plastic plates or to not give them meals.
Hey, one second. Basically, he's saying whatever is going to be a showstopper.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't do this, I just can't have the thing.
I'm not sure if he's saying it as in this is correct. What he's saying is like, no, if you want me to give you an explanation for why you should do that, but overall I'm not a thrilled, happy camper about this, and that's the best I can do for you. That's fair.
But he also does obsecration. That's not obsecration.
So I guess that's going on in the back of the head, but it's true. Maybe if you went to him and said, well, basically, maybe it's obsecration, maybe he would reconsider that. I don't know if that was going through his head.
Yeah. Water order, because there's plenty of hot water. Water order taka, you need it to be enough constant water to be able to suffice for everyone to have hot water. But just to have hot water in the boiler for dishes, there should be enough for Shabbos.
Okay, it's a good point. You see, because I only have to wash dishes now, I need half the tank. So the fact that I'm going to have to deal with later, okay, that's fair, maybe. Okay, now, one of the exceptions to this exception, okay, the exception of adatah denafshe has its own exception, and that is, a guy can't do something adatah denafshe bebeisay shel Yisrael. You can't have him do it your property because people won't realize he's doing a adatah nafshi. They'll think you told him to do it this specific way, like you said, as if you told him wash it with hot water. And since they'll think you did that, therefore, adatah nafshi doesn't work. But basically, meaning be'etzem, he's not doing Amirah L'akum, but people will think he is, and therefore you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so if the waiters walk around and ask people what they want, do you want meat or chicken for your meal? And they have to remember what everyone said. Okay, so what's the reason why he's writing down, why he wants to write down everyone's orders, is because it helps him remember. So really it's a adatah nafshi. But it's based on Yisrael. He's telling you you want chicken and meat, asking each person, I'm sitting writing it down, so it looks like you told him, mark me down, make mine well done, or mark mine in a certain way. So therefore, the guy don't let them write it in the dining room. But wait a second, they tell them, go out of the room to write it down. Okay.
We're answering basis Yisrael now. All adatah nafshis. We're doing all sorts of melachas adatah nafshis in these places. Huh? He's not on his phone either.
He's not allowed to what?
Take out his phone.
That's not.
No one dreams that someone told him to do that. No one told him. No one thinks that I told him pick up your phone and call your friend.
The Mordechai that answers any melacha, that doesn't have shayt for you.
Yeah, that means I said to him, wash the dishes. People know he's washing dishes for me. He's not washing dishes because he likes washing dishes. He's washing dishes because he was told to. You will think that he was told to do it with hot water, and therefore you can't say he was doing it adatah nafshi. He's not doing it for his choice.
I'm questioning where this chiluk comes from. As far as I know, the Mordechai who says the basic Yisrael is talking about all melacha. He's not a chal between adatah didn't have shayt but for you, but adatah didn't have shayt but for himself. Whenever
the din.
Adatah didn't have shayt. Adatah didn't have shayt.
The din is by a kappa, and you can't tell him to do a job, but he can't do that job by you, okay? But he can do it in his house, okay? Because in your house it looks like you told him to do that. But what happens if he wants to walk in and do his own thing? That's obviously his own thing. Why should anybody care about that?
So there's no near commits.
I don't think so. And that never occurred to me. Sorry. Okay, so now Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky told Rebelsky. He said is this that we say you're not to do bein Yisrael, bein Yisrael. Doesn't apply in the deeper recesses of the kitchen. Okay? In other words, even though the kitchen might be owned by a Jewish person, I don't mean the kitchen in your house. I mean the kitchen like in a catering kitchen, like in the back of the house of a hotel. Even if he owns it, or even if he doesn't, but at least he's official managing, he's running the place. He said that's not considered bein Yisrael because wait a second. He says because we just finished my thought. Because he says that's not a place where Yidden are moving around. Even though there are people there, of course there are Yidden in the back there, but everybody who's there knows the halachah of how things run. So the regular people don't come across over there. So I'm almost done. So we could tell the guy to clean the floors. Clean the floors in the dining room, and they'll choose to mop it when there are no people there. When we close the dining room off and there's no one there in the ballroom. But when there are people around or vacuuming the hallways, we can't have them vacuuming the hallways because that's the bein Yisrael. If they clean up and if they do things in the back of the kitchen or they do things in the ballroom when the doors are closed, that was okay. Yes, what do you want to say?
The Shmuel talks about cases of shvachas. They're sewing in their own ward. They're in their own room. They're in their own quarters.
And they're sewing for themselves?
No, they're doing their kabbalah. They're doing it for themselves. Like he says, there's a problem with bein Yisrael.
Again, because someone will think, I said, could you fix my pants? I told you.
I heard this from reishah himself. He spoke about this.
What?
And quoting this from Yaakov, and he didn't like it either.
Who said? Who?
reishah.
Yeah.
I heard him speak on this. Mention this.
Yes.
That's very weird.
Why is it different than what?
No, a lot of them so They are.
Oh, you're saying that's considered bein Yisrael in the Jew's house with the door closed. I thought you meant something else. I have no idea. Okay, you'll have to show us. Okay. Okay, so one last game. We're never going to. I'm going to try. I'm going to move along. What happens if? Well, another case like this. What happens if we have the kitchen is on the second floor of the hotel, okay, and the dining room is on the sixth floor of the hotel, okay. So the normal way you bring food from the kitchen to the dining room is you go in the elevator, okay. There's a service elevator, okay. The service elevator means not around where people are. So if it's not where people are, so you say, okay, well, should we treat that as adatah nafshi, not the bein Yisrael, to the fact that he was going in the elevator, okay. So there, it really depends. Okay, if it's realistic for him to bring up the meals, let's say it's just not from the second floor to the sixth floor, so second floor to the third floor. So you say it's within reason that he could get from here to there in a normal manner and bring the food there, that's okay. But from the second floor to the sixth floor, if he was going up the steps by the time he got everyone's meals up, the food would be cold. I mean, there's no way for him to possibly bring up the food from here to there.
That has nothing to do with that issue Yisrael.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with basic Yisrael.
That's correct.
It has to do with, even if it was not basic you're basically
So it's
telling
not a daitet denafshe. We lose it. Even though we avoided the basic shul, he uses the service elevator. He doesn't use the real elevator, but he's not doing a daitet denafshe when telling him to go up 6 floors. It's not real. It's not. There's no physical way for him to get all those meals to the air in time in a realistic way.
What about mopping the whole bowl? Because how's he supposed to do that without a mop?
He could sweep. He could sit and clean.
He wouldn't mop.
What?
He wouldn't mop.
He wouldn't mop. Right? So the fact that when I say clean up, and he chooses to do because it's easier to mop than to sit and sweep and then scrape everything off the floor by hand, which you could do, but he chooses to do.
Acceptable. It would be unacceptable if it's unacceptable for it to not be mopped. So there's
saying if the guests would walk in and be horrified to see the floor looking like that.
Those sorts of stains and stuff on the floor.
Oh, okay, that's a fair question. Maybe it means I'm giving him some. I'm not realistically telling him to. Okay, fair question. Okay, a different day we're going to talk about this problem, which is when there are hotels that the only way to get into your room is with an electric key card, and in a lot of these places, what they'll do is they say we have goyim there who you could tell the guy to open the door for you. Okay, and that's a question. We're going to talk about one day. We'll talk about hotel issues. We're going to talk about that. Put that on the side. If they still let me talk. Okay. Okay. One more thing that I said I was going to get to, having to do with this, which is convection ovens. So a convection oven is, you've all seen it. A convection oven is the kind of oven that opens with the doors opening this way instead of pulling down, like 2 doors usually that opens like that. And the feature, what convection means is that instead of it just being a fire, there's also a fan that circulates the air. Okay, and that helps it cook faster and cook more evenly and all kinds of wonderful things. So, because it has this fan built into it, this is an automatic problem, which is when you open the door, the fan's going to, first of all, blow in your face, and it's also going to blow all the heat out of the oven. Okay, so the standard way you make a convection oven is that when you open the door, the fan turns off. Sometimes even the fire turns off also, depending on how it's in. But all of them, the fan turns off because not only because you don't want to get hit with heat and you don't want to blow all the hot air out of the oven. Okay, so that fan, which is helpful for the baking, turns off, and sometimes even the fire turns off when you open the door. So the 2 reasons people give for why it should be okay for the goyim to open the doors of the convection oven, basically, and turn the fan off. One is he's doing it back to the nafshe. He's doing it so he doesn't get hit with hot air. He doesn't want to get hit with the hot air, so it's for his benefit that the fan goes off. Okay. The other is
what about putting it back in?
I'm coming to that in a second. The other one is that he's in miskaven. He's just trying to get the chicken out of the oven. He couldn't care less whether the thing goes on or off. He's not paying any attention to that, and it's just psik reishah. So psik reishah is good for a guy. Okay, I'm not going to tell you. There's questions about whether both of these are very shaky, questionable reasons. But the biggest question is that it's really nice. All these are potential reasons to take the food out of the oven. Doesn't help you to put the food back into it, to close the oven door afterwards. Okay, how do we close the door afterwards? That's not a daitet denafshe. He's closing it because the Yidden said we got to cook. The food's got to cook more. Okay, of course he's miskaven because we want to cook the chicken. The rest, the 3 pans that are still in there have to get cooked.
All right, so
we'll have to stay cooking.
It won't cook as good as whatever is fast. If the things don't still cook, it'll still bake, right? He's not thinking about that.
Really? When you close the oven door, you're not thinking, the food's going to cook. I'm closing the door to the food cook.
But it'll cook. It's just the fan makes it cook better, right?
Interesting. In a lot of them, the fire's off. Then you really be up the creek. But not all of them. There are some. Really?
All of them. Yes, because they're not built to withstand the heat of the flames without the fan on circulating it.
Okay.
They're just not built.
Could be. I'm not familiar. I thought that some of the fire stays on also, but yeah, the fire's off them for sure. It's like that, right? So we don't let them unless you override them. Okay, and you override the thing. So which anyhow they like to override it because of the Amirah L'akum problem. So they override it to make it that does not happen when you open the doors. Okay, let me keep on going. Okay, now we finally get to a not. I know it's time. Okay. Some examples of where this comes up for not for food service, for industrial kind of work, and that is saying a daitet denafshe when we're making. What happens is a kosher production that is happening on Shabbos with a mashgiach standing there. Okay, mashgiach is there for the kosher production. There's something that takes a week long to make it, and it's going over Shabbos. The mashgiach is standing there. So Rabbi said that everything that the goyim are doing is considered a daitet denafshe. They're doing it for themselves. Even when the mashgiach says to him, seal that up with kosher tape. And put kosher tape on this thing, which is really for a Kashrus reason, right? He wants to make sure this thing is sealed up because that's what we need for Kashrus reasons. He says, but why is the guy doing this? He's following Kashrus rules because he wants to be able to sell more whatever he's making. So that thing that he's doing is adatah denafshe. He's following the rabbi's orders not because the rabbi wants him to do it. It's all for his own purposes. If it's his produce, his product that he's making, and he's going to eventually, he knows he wants to sell to Jews, so therefore he wants to make it kosher, so it's for his benefit. But not if he's processing the Jewish person stuff. If he's processing a yid, send him stuff to process, and over Shabbos now he has to follow some kind of rule that would not be considered adatah denafshe.
It's also a slippery slope.
That what?
Because when it comes to a lot of these type of things, every mashgiach has his own style. I need to put the tape here, take this, stick it here, on this, on that, and the other thing. So as a mashgiach in their style is that, and I need it on everything. So you're following the mashgiach's things. So he can sell the product.
But why is he following this mashgiach's rules? He's following the rules because he wants to be able to sell more, whatever it is.
Wants to get along with mashgiach. No, I'm very serious. I'm very serious.
Okay.
A lot of things that you got to do with the style of mashgiach. A lot of the different,
It's not for the mashgiach either.
What?
It's not for the mashgiach. Ultimately, the mashgiach doesn't really care.
He wants to do a good job. I want to do a good job. Mashgiach wants to do a good job. He wants to,
He
wants to follow the kosher rules in order to get the thing approved.
It always comes up.
I don't think it's more.
Yeah, but a rabbi, the plants, every rabbi's a little different. He wants to do things. You get clean here, clean there.
But
they have their own different things, and inevitably you're going to end up doing it. That's the mashgiach.
It's all that's the mashgiach, but it's not a problem here.
Let me just.
I know the larger picture is that it's a.
He's having no enough from this.
One thing Rabbi Shachta said had nothing to do with this part, the Amirah L'akum part of Shabbos. He says if a yid's going to be sitting in the plant for the whole Shabbos as a mashgiach, he's not saying not to do it. He needs to be in the plant for the whole Shabbos. He says it would be uvdu d'chol if he would just act like it was a regular Tuesday. He says so the yid should wear Shabbos clothes. He should carry a sefer. He should be careful about talking to the goyim about random things, this and that. He has to do something to make it. He says it's uvdu d'chol for him to act like it's just a plain Tuesday. That's just a side thing. Had nothing to do with Amirah L'akum. Okay.
That was more like I got some more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Uvdu d'chol is not so exact.
Parameters of the law needs to be more welcome to get.
Okay.
Even is from books, so that's how he's.
Okay.
He's back
So
there, so
okay now this whole thing that I'm telling you about this whole section about for Jews. That's what this section is about. Because the for Jews doing things for the Yidden. Is to say the less it's for the Yid, the better off we are. Okay, so there's an opposite case. There's an exact opposite case. The Chayadim says is what happens if the eruv goes down on Shabbos? So now Yidden are going to be carrying unwittingly. People are going to be carrying because the eruv went down. So there he says there you could even do an issa. You could tell the guy to do even issa deraisa to do that of Amirah L'akum because of the tzarich mitzvah. We could tell him even to do an issa deraisa to do it in mitzvah. So here the fact that the guy is doing it is the reason why he's not doing it is is the opposite of adatah denafshe. It's specifically because it's to help so many Yidden. That's the reason why it's mutter rather than why it's asur. Again, usually it's the opposite. Usually the less it's for the Yidden is the more mutter. And here it's the opposite. Where being adatah denafshe for the Yidden is the reason. The more Yidden it's for is the more reason to be made. Okay, hope that wasn't complicated. Okay, let's do the last section, which is about Shabbos and the small section about. I'm going to skip like a whole page over here about Shabbos and Yom Tov. It has to be on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So the first thing is what happens when Yidden make early Shabbos. Okay, so the people in the hotel all made early Shabbos. So Shabbos starts at 5:00, and they started Shabbos at 4:00. Okay, so the CRC's rule for that is that the goyim can keep doing Melacha. Okay, they could keep doing whatever they want to. There's no problems of Amirah L'akum until our rule is, for whatever reason, 10 minutes before when the Yidden come back from davening, when they come to the dining room. I guess until then, the point is they don't have to be Mekabel Shabbos early. They can do whatever they want to. The goyim could do we could have the goyim doing what they want to before that. I guess feeling is when it gets close to the time when Yidden coming back, then it's like sort of Beis Yisrael. Then it's a little more not so okay.
Amirah L'akum is mutter.
Is mutter?
It's mutter. And places Shabbos.
Ball's cow, but you have to ball's cow. It's other to ball's cow.
So I'm not sure what we think about that, right? When the call, if it's a hotel, everyone's Mekabel Shabbos, right? This is. I'm not sure about that. Why don't we think about this as saying is that this tzibur, this hotel in the middle of Arizona, right? This is it. This is all the Yidden for 1,000 miles from here. I'm not sure why we don't say that.
But as much as only if there wasn't.
Who's right?
No, he's right, which is once if everyone's Mekabel Shabbos, then
everybody's got Mekabel Shabbos, but Amirah L'akum is still mutter in that time.
It's not mutter during that time. I thought it's not. We have to check. Okay, I'm pretty sure I think it's right now. So which is say so. But if we're in a hotel, if we made
Because if you ask about a private person,
No, if we made a bar
Because
mitzvah,
Shabbos is mutar Amirah L'akum.
yeah,
That time, okay.
if we made a bar mitzvah in shul, and the whole bar mitzvah went to go make early Shabbos, but that's the whole community over here. It's one thing. But if we went to the hotel, we're in the middle of Pittsburgh, someplace. We're in the middle of who knows where.
The program middle of nowhere.
Right. So then the whole call was Makabel Shabbos. That's a fair question. I know, but that is our rule. But I don't. It's a little.
So
vague.
so what's the svar of the rule? Why?
The sort is because it's sort of like it's not Shabbos yet. Okay, sort of like I said before, and about chumras and things like that. It's not Shabbos for them, so the guys don't have to be Makabel Shabbos early.
And 10 minutes before.
So the 10 minutes before is
more,
the 10 minutes before is more like once the Yidden are there. I forgot to tell you Rabbi Schwartz, other reason for not writing down your orders on Shabbos, he thought it was a zilzal to have a guy walking around with pieces of paper, walking around a kosher dining room, saying that you want chicken or meat. So maybe at that point it becomes a little, not looks wrong.
So forget the time, not the 10 minutes part, but when they come out of shul, then it's a zilzal.
Right. At that, it could be at that. I have a feeling that that's what's going on. That when it gets to the point that the Yidden are not coming back, they're now around where all the goyim are hanging out and doing their things. Now it's like, what kind of things is there vacuuming? And for us, it's all Shabbos, and everyone's vacuuming. That doesn't seem right. Yeah, and the 10 minutes is just a buffer. I don't think that'd be there. Okay. Now, the next section, which I'm skipping most of, I'm just going to give you the main point of it, which is another time you're allowed to do Amirah L'akum, as people have mentioned, is bein hashmashos. Okay, bein hashmashos, you're allowed to do Amirah L'akum. So, without giving you all the glory, l'tzarech. No, I'm sorry. It's not the word. It's interesting the way it says it. You're allowed to do it l'tzarech mitzvah or shehu tarid v'nechbas aleha. Okay, l'tzarech mitzvah, the Mishnah says means even for a mitzvah that'll be after Shabbos. Any kind of mitzvah, not usually l'tzarech mitzvah means a mitzvah of that day. Or something that's going to really bother people. Okay, the example there is lighting yahrzeit candle. Okay, you're going to be really bother you that we missed. I forgot that the yahrzeit we have to light a candle, and that's going to bother people. That's a reason you like to do. So in that there's a tshuva from Moshe that again in short there's two main sheets about when bein hashmashos is. Okay, and they're very far apart from each other. So the one holds bein hashmashos starts from sunset for a certain amount of time. One holds that bein hashmashos is backwards from tzeisah kachavim backwards for a couple of minutes. Okay, and the in between time, both of them hold is either for sure day or for sure night. Okay, if bein hashmashos starts at shkia for 3/4 of a mil, so then after that is complete for sure night. The other holds no, bein hashmashos starts from 3/4 of a mil from before tzeisah kachavim, and before that it's for sure day. Okay, I'm giving to this in short. I'm sorry. So Rav Moshe says during both of those times. The first two of those times you could be mekel during the bein hashmashos of the few minutes after shkia, and then from there until it's bein hashmashos till the way before, almost by tzeisah kachavim. In short, Rav Moshe says for 40 minutes. Okay, for 40 minutes after sunset, it's considered bein hashmashos. For the first about 9 minutes, it's bein hashmashos according to we'll call it the sheet of the Gra. That's bein hashmashos. For the next give or take half hour. It's a time when it's either day or night. It's for sure day or it's for sure night, but it's a machlokes when it is. He says that's good enough for a suffix to be mekel on Amirah L'akum. And then the last, give or take 10 minutes, is the 9.5 minutes. That's you can't do. Okay, I'm sorry, I did that really quickly. Okay, two last little things, just because of the time. I'm sorry. I don't know if it comes up. I don't know how negated that is.
There are those that strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't see everybody. It's a big chiddush. It's a big chiddush the way it counts 50 minutes. Yeah. This is a big chiddush to say is that middle time, which is Vada Yom or Vada Laila. It's just we don't know whether it's Vada Yom or Vada Laila, which one should we make on, but that's what Moshe says. Okay. The two more things. Okay, I'll skip on them. Okay, one more thing. If a guy has a retail store that's open on Shabbos, let's say Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, a guy's a person owns a store. He's a retail, so he makes donuts. So if he makes food on Shabbos for a Yid, that food would be usher. Now, Dunkin' Donuts is not a good example because in Dunkin' Donuts, they don't make food for you. They make the donuts today. Now they make 20 donuts, and then when you walk in, they just hand you your donut. Okay, they don't make something for you. They don't make it when you walk in the door. But there are other stores where, one particular where this situation came up, they make the food when you order something. Can I have an egg? And they make you an egg. Okay, whatever the.
I know what I was asking you about the other.
Were you asking about this?
Yeah, you were saying that we don't have anything.
Right, but there's a specific case where this came up. I can tell you about it afterwards. There's a specific case. So what happens? They make the food for the Yid when he shows up. So what do you say?
Even if they don't, it's a shayla of millet.
What's a shayla of millet?
If they made it mamash fresh out of flour and water. Chaim talks about if you bake bread on Shabbos.
She's mukseh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. I believe you, but
Go
like
tell
this,
them what's the case, because
it was a restaurant type situation, like literally like a restaurant type situation where you walk in and you say, "Can I have this?" and they make the food for you and they give it to you. Okay, and
we have.
it was not under hashgacha.
No.
No, not under hashgacha. Second thing, there's a total different complication. Put that on the side. So the guy did Melacha for you. Now, a person who walked in and ordered a sandwich on Shabbos probably doesn't care so much. We assume he probably doesn't care so much about the fact that his food is now going to be
That's a good assumption.
awesome. Now, it's actually not a good assumption. And
Really?
the reason why, really, because there are, like it or not, there's lots of Yidden who are not Shem Shabbos, or not Shem Shabbos the way you're really supposed to be, but they eat kosher. So,
But not
our
I don't want to eat chazer, but
our letter says that this food is kosher. We're eating the food that's not kosher. Okay, but the variation of that is that in some cases that food is usher even after Shabbos. Okay, so that means is what happens if the person, my relative or my neighbor buys his food from the place. He goes to buys it on Shabbos and comes and give it to me after Shabbos. What came from the place with the seal? It's all sealed up. It's all I know it came from the kosher place, but what?
Does the oil work for the yes?
So it depends on what goes on and who it's made for. If you made it for me, it's usher forever. So maybe then for me it's usher. So are we doing the right thing? We're letting the store be open on Shabbos with a hashgacha when actually people are going to eat not kosher food because of that. So it's a little of a funny situation. In the situation where it was, they were letting it. And that was the question. Is that right? Or are we like, come on guys, hello, if you bought from the store on Shabbos, we can't stop you. We can't solve all the world's problems, you know? But that was a question that came.